Hey everybody, Sujan Patel here from Mailshake. I've got Rex Bibertson. Did I say your name right?
Yeah, that's
Awesome.
right.
I like to just take a first stab at it. Rex is from the sales developers. Really awesome company if you want to go outsource your sales. I know your SDR as a service is a pretty awesome offering. I think a friend of mine actually uses you.
Very
But
nice.
anyways, Rex, thank you for joining. I'm really excited to talk to you today.
Yeah, no, super excited to be here, Susan. Appreciate it.
For those people who don't know you, maybe can you give a little bit of information on your background?
Yeah, so kind of reaching way back into the early days, I sold door-to-door alarms, right? That was kind of my first real sales job. Moved into sales technology eventually, working at InsideSales.com, which is where I really cut my teeth on inside sales. I had no idea what it meant that you could sell from the phone and a computer, and it was just this incredible thing. And so I built my career around the top of the funnel, selling from a phone and computer, and I love it. It enables a lot of great things for a lot of great companies. So I've done I built a couple of outsourced sales companies since then, and now the sales developers has come out of the book that we wrote. So Ryan Reiser, my co-founder, and I wrote Outbound Sales No Fluff, where we just break down in like 50 pages, like a 1 hour read, the fundamentals of outbound sales. So I think we're going to talk through a lot of those today in a little bit more interactive format. But that's kind of my background.
Awesome. Yeah. And Mark and Mark's on the marketing side, he's been help coordinating all these interviews. Have like gone through your book and it's awesome. We're gonna try to apply it for one of our other companies.
Nice,
And we'll keep you posted on how it goes. I
cool.
love it. It's super short, like just to the point, right? No fluff for sure. So what I really want to talk to you today about is how to prioritize leads to improve your close rate, and really like systematically. I think in your book you've got a pretty awesome like way of formatting and bucketing things. But I guess just jumping in, um, how do you even get started? Like, okay, I've got leads. I'm a salesperson. Leads is not the problem,
Yeah.
but my I want to improve my close rate.
It's a really easy question. In fact, you start with the thing that's closest to closing. The closest thing to revenue first is the most important thing. It's not always the thing you do first, but it's how you start to what we call bucket your leads, right? So if you're a full cycle sales rep, like maybe you're a founder or you're just an AE who has to source their own deals, you don't go start with a list of cold calls, people you've never talked to. You start with the people who you're about to close the deal. Do you owe them anything? Great, go close that sale, right? Behind that, do you have somebody who maybe should have closed last quarter but didn't? Okay, follow up with them. They're already interested in you. They know your brand. So really emphasizing the closest thing to revenue first. Working backwards from there, there's people you've had conversations with but never converted to a meeting. Behind that, it's people where you know they actually could be reached if you just attempt them enough times. So maybe over email you saw that they opened. Great, now I need to spend a little more time personalizing, or you've gotten to their voicemail and you know it's them. That's what we call bucket two. So we work this in priority order in terms of reverse from revenue. So start with the very most important, the very thing closest to closing first, and we work it backwards. And we call it our bucketing strategy. We make it super simple. So I'll just break it down real quick. Bucket one is uncontacted. You've never tried to reach these people before. So least valuable, right? Bucket two is working. These are people you've tried to reach and you've confirmed that maybe email reaches them, you didn't get a bounced email, or phone reaches them, you got to their voicemail or their gatekeeper said, yeah, this is his or her best number. Bucket three is priority. So these are people who you talked to but didn't convert. And bucket four, or that you're currently engaged with, right? And bucket four is meeting scheduled. So we think about this all at the top of the funnel. It can keep going, right? The closer you get to closing a sale, there's just more and more buckets down below. So that's how we think about it. It's just super simple. We try and cut away all of this like other dispositions you might leave. And I mean, we can get so complex with CRM that we start to forget, man, it's really just talk to the people who already know you first. Talk to the people who are most likely to close business with you, and then work on people, filling the top of the funnel.
Right, right. It's really those two elements, right? If you go after, if you all you do is spend all your time on new leads, you end up just getting people to closer to a close, but not always pushing it through, which is makes sense. One of the things we did at our company is we hired a new salesperson as a part of his training. We're like, why don't we give him all of our deals that didn't close,
Oh
like
yeah,
a few hundred
it's
of them.
gold.
Yeah, he closed a bunch of them. I'm like, sweet.
Yeah, no, it's a gold mine,
Um,
man.
and I was like, wait, why didn't we do this earlier? It's just such an easy thing. So we put it as a part of our process. But anyways, that's an awesome bucketing system. Bucket 1 through 4, 1 through 5. I want to get back to that in a second.
Yeah.
You also in your book talk about funnel math. Can you talk about that? Like, what is funnel math?
Yeah, so this is for sales reps. It's really important, but it's equally important for sales management. So I guess we'll go into sales management first, right? Everybody thinks that the manager or the director or the VP owns the number. They know the number. Well, they know what they need to close, and so working backwards from that, okay, well, how many opportunities do you need to have at what close rate? If we have a 20% close rate, I need 5 opportunities for every one deal I want to close. Working that backwards. So we step out of things so simply. Okay, well, how many meetings do I need to have in order to convert that many opportunities? Okay, backwards from meetings, how many conversations do I need to have in order to convert that many into meetings? And backwards from there, how many people do I need to try and talk to every single day? And that's how many conversations do I need to earn? How many people do I need to talk to? That's the funnel math. And we make it super simple in the book, but it's really as easy as like use a napkin, write down, okay, if I have a goal of 1 sale, what's my average close rate? Work that backwards. But we don't just advise that for sales leadership. This is where it gets really risky, that you as a sales individual rep have to trust that somebody else owns your number. No, you own your number. Like, we believe you should know what it is that you have to do, because your conversion rates are going to be slightly different. Your metrics are going to look a little bit different than the plan. So we always default to, if your manager has a higher number of activities or people you need to talk to, take their number. If they have a lower number than you, set the number higher. Make sure that you're hitting your funnel metrics, your funnel math, so you're not relying on somebody else.
Awesome. And for those folks who haven't read the book, we'll link it in the show notes here as well. So everyone should grab a copy. Everybody has 1 hour to spend to make their
That's
sales,
right.
to
It's a
improve their
lunchtime.
sales, right? Yeah, it's really easy. Actually, I did read it over lunch, so like
I'm not surprised.
it's fast, right? Um, so I love it. Yeah, I mean, I think it's I think a lot of people talk about sales forecasting and projections, and they come up with these numbers, and I'm going to get, like, next month I'm going to get more leads, and they just kind of, but where is that going to come from, right? I think, like, how are you going to get more sales? I think I'm going to gun for 30% increase in revenue from my last month's, like, deal numbers. Where does that come from? I think this simple math, like, anybody can do. And also, like you were saying, the manager, right? Like, me as a sales manager, I should know these numbers of what,
Yeah.
like, is realistic for my reps, right? Like, if I say we've only got, I want them to close, you know, 50 deals, but I only got 100 um, deals, and I only have 100 new leads, and my close rate's 20%. That's double 2.5xing their close rate to meet those
Yep.
numbers, or I need more leads, right? So
Yep.
you know where the bottleneck is.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to talk to you a little bit more details on those buckets, specifically bucket 3. Seems like that's the priority, right? That's the one
Yeah.
that's
That's exactly right.
golden opportunities. Um, so can you walk through that? Like, okay, so you've identified. So, okay, when I say walk through, I mean, okay, it's easy to quantify these or put people into certain buckets, but now you got these buckets. What does somebody do for bucket 3? How do they prioritize them in their day to day?
Yeah, so bucket 3 is really interesting. It's easy to say, okay, I've reached this person before. I've spoken with them, whether over email, social, phone, it doesn't matter. You should have set a follow-up task. Either it's an agreed upon time that you're reaching back out to them, or now would be the most appropriate time to reach back out to them. And that includes, by the way, people who were somewhat interested but not converted yet. Also, people who weren't interested. If you had a good enough reason, they told you why they weren't interested or they didn't, you could present them with a new offer. You could present them with new information, new ideas, new content. It's still a priority lead, because it's a heck of a lot easier to reach somebody you've reached before than it is to go back into that bucket 1 and find somebody who's actually going to pick up the phone or respond to email. It's a lot easier to go revisit these people if you have a compelling reason and something valuable to share with them. So bucket 3 is, we always say it's the gold mine because it's the follow-up bucket, right? It's
Hmm.
everybody that we should be actively engaging with, even if active engagement is like, hey, their contract is up in a quarter, in half a year. Great, I have a follow-up task due in 5 months to follow up with them. That's still a bucket 3 lead to me. I'm just not doing anything on it today. So we use task management to say, okay, what am I doing with these buckets today? You should have a list of people you're acting on today in bucket 3. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, I love it. Yeah, I think. and it's that finding the reason to reach out, and it takes a little bit of creative thought process, but
Yeah.
it's definitely not impossible, right?
Yeah.
That's why I like using. That's where I think like sales and marketing do a good job together. Is where you've got a lot of marketing collateral, whether it's ebooks, videos, blog posts. I always try to make any excuse I can send somebody something of value, because then it's
Yeah.
like I can keep sending value anytime and they get hooked
Top
up.
of mind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, and I
I
think
love it.
one like kind of takeaway strategy that people can use here for follow up with people who've said no previously is to think about a different offer, and it could be the same. So like, let's say I'm like a web designer and offer you a free assessment of your website, right? So I come to you and I say, hey, like, look, Susan, I'm going to give you a free assessment. You're like, look, I'm not interested. Thanks so much. If I come back to you a month later and say, Susan, you weren't interested in the free assessment. What if instead of that, I do this? And the offer is related and I'm willing to execute on it, but it's something like, what if instead of that, I just give you a 3-minute video tour? Instead of doing it live for half an hour, I give you 3 minutes of the highlights and you take it away and you use it. Boy, you're a heck of a lot more likely to respond than the person who's never heard of me, who never said yes or no to me or maybe.
Yeah,
So I would revisit you as a bucket 3 lead any day with that new offer. And it's still something I was going to do with you live, except now I'm doing it over video. So there's a lot of ways that we can rethink the offer, and the value is there, but it just makes it more convenient. As part of the time they're just saying no for convenience sake. It's like, yeah, this isn't worth my time. Great. Can I make it more convenient for you to accept an offer? Those are still super high priority leads to me.
absolutely. I love it. So there's really I've asked you the big questions I want to talk about, systemizing those and prioritizing the high priority leads, and improving your close rate. Obviously, warmer leads, people down the funnel, are going to close at a better rate. They've been primed, they've been prepped. But what did I not ask? Like, what do people need to know that I haven't actually got like covered?
Well, I think, one of the points here is, why aren't people doing this if it's so stinking obvious,
Hmm.
right? This is where technology becomes a monster and a nightmare and a problem instead of a savior for us in sales. Is we believe that like technology is going to save us, right? And we talk about this in the book, oddly enough. Like, I just keep bringing up these same themes from the book, but we think that we can go buy a piece of technology. Let's say it's Salesforce, right? Oh, Salesforce can do everything. But if we don't have a process that we're using the technology for, then we start to come up with all these different lead statuses. For example, lead status was like the craziest thing to me when I first learned inside sales and what it meant.
Hmm.
It's like there was one called BD follow up, one called follow up later, one call, it was just like all these different dispositions, and buckets were really simple, but nobody really just makes it that simple because they think they need to gather all this info. So a lot of the times we rely on technology, we start to add on pieces, and really we should probably just sweep away most of the noise and most of the fluff and make it really, really simple for ourselves to say, okay, this is a bucket 1 lead. Now, for sales reps who don't control the technology, you can still have mapped in your mind or on a piece of paper, okay, if any lead falls in these categories in Salesforce, according to the way my sales manager runs Salesforce,
Hmm.
that's bucket 1 for me. So I can run a list of those that are in bucket 1 or bucket 2. You don't actually have to change the technology if you don't have control of it. I think that's, one of the things is like an excuse that a rep might make. Well, I can't run buckets. I can't prioritize because it's up to my sales manager what leads I call. I can guarantee you your sales manager will be a lot happier if you hit your number. And they're not going to question you if you're not asking for a bunch of things to change in the system. You're just doing your job and you're focusing on the right leads first. So I think that's one thing we haven't talked about, is really there's so many different excuses, and technology really is one that gets in the way a lot, especially for sales reps who say, well, I don't control the tech stack.
Right. Yeah. And or like there might be, you're having to reorganize the way you qualify things, right, and classify it, and you may have access to it, but you don't want to mess up the what you've created, right? but
Yeah.
but clearly, I look at our CRM, I look at our flow and lead scoring every 3 to 6 months, and I think about what can we do to make it better. Like, why do we have eight statuses?
Hmm.
Can we just do two, and like, or three or five? Like, follow up doesn't need six other things. It just maybe needs one more. It's like, okay, prime follow up, engage, and then disengage, and
Yep.
you know, and then a few months later, like, well, actually, we do the same thing for both, so we're just gonna merge them too, right? And it didn't matter because for us it was we have a very short lead cycle, time to close. It's
Yeah.
usually a week or two, uh, Longest is usually a month. So like, we're done with these leads in a month. Like we don't need 18 different rows and like
Yep.
it's
Yep.
really
And
complicated.
you're going to default to not taking action on some of them. Like if there's just too many slices of the pie, like you're just going to ignore some of them naturally. And
Mhm.
that's business on the table, honestly.
Love it. That's great. So Rex, that's really all I wanted to ask you. I think you've done a great job. Short and sweet, just like your book. I think the folks here that are watching, listening, definitely check out thesalesdevelopers.com and check out Rex's book, again, listed below or linked below, and go take action. Like Rex mentioned, like 4 things already that you can do immediately. Like it's just, you already have leads in your funnel. Go take those bucket 3 and take action and figure out what you can do. So thanks, Rex, and really had a blast talking to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.